All right, good evening, everyone. We'll begin our Board of Appeals meeting for the City of Holland. Board members are regular citizens of Holland who have volunteered and have been appointed by City Council to consider applications to the Zoning Board of Appeals, Housing Board of Appeals, the Construction Board of Appeals, and for accommodations for persons with disabilities. This board must interpret each application as it relates to city ordinances. This board is not empowered to rezone or to take any action that could be considered rezoning. The agenda is in the order that the applications were received by the city. The presence of 4 board members is required for a quorum. It also takes 4 concurring votes to approve applications. When your application is called, we ask that you come to the microphone at the podium and state your name and address. We will hear the applicant explain their application first. The board will have the opportunity to ask questions, and then there will be a public hearing. After the public hearing is closed, there will be no other opportunity for further public comment related to the application. Decisions of the board are final and are effective on the day of such decision. However, applicants may appeal decisions to the circuit court in accordance with state law. If you elect not to stay for our deliberation and decision, you may call the Community and Neighborhood Service Department after 8:30 tomorrow morning to learn the results. Meetings are streamed live online and recorded and available to view on the city's YouTube channel. If our board has no objections with the agenda, will our clerk please read the first item?
The first application is for 447 northbound US 31 Highway, application number 2312H. Jim Edward, on behalf of the property owner Shoe Ventures LLC, is requesting a variance to allow 2 buildings to be connected to the same sewer lateral where separate laterals are required by the ordinance. The Housing Board of Appeals can approve this request if certain conditions are found to exist.
Jim?
Hi, I'm Jim Edward. My address is 966 88th in Zeeland, Michigan.
All right, and can you tell us a little bit about your application?
During the construction of the new oil change in the former Boston Market location, the contractor damaged the sewer line that serviced for sure one hotel and the Wooden Shoe property, which is the tap room, Wooden Shoe restaurant, and the antique mall. And we were told that that could not be reconstructed, and we had to find a different route for that sewer line. And there was one adjacent along the Holland Motorhomes and Bus Company property that we could access. So we didn't have a lot of time to plan all this. It was kind of a hasty program. So we hooked into that line, and I think the city engineer, the city contractors were overseeing the contractors that we had hired to run the line and told us how to do it. We did it and then found out later that we had 2 buildings with 2 lines that are common ownership, but on 2 separate lines going to that main sewer line, which is not according to your ordinance.
All right, any questions from the board?
So the work has already been completed?
Yes.
Okay. Was there any sewer backups or damages?
Yes. Yeah, we didn't get a lot of advance warning.
Well, not when they damaged it, of course.
Yes.
But, okay. All right. Everything's tied in, everything's working good?
Correct.
And we do have a letter from Holland BPW explaining some of this and saying that the HBPW approves the use of this single connection riser to serve the multiple buildings at 447 northbound US 31.
And do you want to ask him what their Plan B strategy was?
What was your Plan B strategy, Jim?
People don't go to bathroom at work.
Yeah, right. Okay. Thank you.
Actually, yeah, I guess related to that, were you aware that this situation existed like this prior to this?
No. I mean, the contractor for the oil change location was not aware of the line that they hit and broke, so temporarily they fed it into the existing line that was part of Boston Market, but that was a temporary feed. I mean, we were on the fly, we got to do something right now, and that's how we got here.
This is the long-term, quasi-long, I guess, long-term fix, isn't it? I mean, this is
Permanent in our mind.
okay.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
At this time, we'll open the public hearing for comment or concern specific to this application. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in regards to this application? Seeing nobody, we will close the public hearing. And the board can discuss.
I'll make a motion to approve the request, considering we have conditions that are found to exist. I can go through those right now, or after we get a second. I feel that the applicant did explain the background and the reasons for the request, and that they did explain alternative plans for, in regards to doing this and for installing two separate sewer line, why they didn't do two separate sewer lines. And Holland BPW did submit a staff report to this board with a recommendation to create this situation for this property for the long term.
Would you be able to give the reasons, the background, the reasons for the request and the alternate plan?
Well, the the depth of the sewer, the conditions of the sewer, the existing sewer main, the site conditions that were given in the application. I feel the applicant did review that in their application already, and the Holland Board of Public Works did support that. So, you were looking for more specific?
I've just got to have you say what the specifics are instead of just restating what answering the question.
The depth and condition of the existing public sanitary sewer main, the groundwater table being would be an issue for excavation. It would compromise the area, the integrity of the sanitary sewer main, and likely lead to premature failure of the sewer main. So just leaving it to one joint sewer connection on that sanitary sewer main with multiple buildings, in this case 2 buildings, that are jointly owned, was the best option.
I'm good.
All right, I think we're looking for a call for the vote.
The motion is to approve with conditions. Davis,
Yes.
Barr,
Yes.
Sorick,
Yes.
Van Antwerp,
Yes.
and Fuzak.
Yes.
Motion to approve with condition passes.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. And I think we're ready to hear our next item on the agenda.
The second application is for 495 Central Avenue, application number 2313Z. Randy Brower, on behalf of Building Men for Life, is requesting a special exception for a housing accommodation to operate a recovery residence at 495 Central Avenue. He is requesting 11 unrelated persons to live together as a family, where 4 are allowed. The Board of Appeals may approve this request if certain conditions are met.
Okay, Randy. Please state your name and address and explain the application.
Okay, my name is Randy Brower. I live at 284 Orlando here in Holland.
And 495 Central is a new residence that we just purchased from another nonprofit. And they were running a similar ministry there, where they were housing women and children, I believe. And they pulled out, and we had the opportunity to purchase that from them. And so we did so, hoping to operate the same, but only with our program with men. So we thought they had reasonable accommodations, but they didn't. So now we're asking for reasonable accommodations for that location. And I think you guys all know about Building Men for Life. I think we were in before. We've been operating in the city of Holland for 15 years, and I believe we're an asset to the community. We help to keep guys off the streets, and helps them to find a new life in recovery and to stay sober. So that's our goal and our mission. You guys have any questions other than?
I'm vaguely recalling from the last time you guys were here. Do you guys have a couple different like phases or levels of homes?
Yes, we do.
And can you explain that and what type this will?
Okay,
will
this
be
will
at
be
495 Central.
this will be a level 1, and a level 1 houses for new guys that are coming into our program. And we like to have 2-man rooms in that situation if possible, because there seems to be more accountability and less opportunity for guys to isolate if they have a roommate and they have a partner that they're sharing their new experience with in a recovery house. They do have a 10 o'clock curfew. They are drug tested, and there's a breathalyzer there. There's a live-in house manager there that monitors what's going on. And let's see, level 1. Usually those guys come in, they don't have employment. They just came from a treatment center. So they probably had their first 3 months of sobriety, at a in-house like the Chester Ray unit here in town, or the Gilmore unit, or we get a lot of guys coming from Coyne, I think that's Bear River Recovery, that have been coming down here and then moving in with us, and then they have to find employment. We help them with that. They have to attend at least 4 meetings a week that deals with their issue. Either it's a NA problem, narcotics, or it's an alcohol problem with the AA. So we monitor that they do that. They have to show us proof that they've gone to these meetings. They normally don't have weekend passes for their first month, but after that they can have passes where they can go back to visit with their families, or some of these guys are married, so they want to go back home. But yeah, that's the level 1. The level 2, we have I think we have about 9 houses that are level 2. These are the guys that have been graduated to level 1. They know our program. They know we want the houses kept clean. They have to be employed, have to keep current on their program fees that they pay to Building Men for Life. And then they get a single-man room. In a single-man room, they can have their own TV in the room, whereas in level 1, there's one TV in the house. It's kind of more of a community atmosphere there. So 495 will be a level 1 house. It's a beautiful house. We've done a lot of repairs since we've moved in. I think we had 35 items on our inspection, so that's how we took the house over. Things that needed to be corrected, so we put a new roof on, we put a new furnace in. Did a lot of work to make it a good, safe place. And I think it'd be a wonderful place, and I think it would be great to put as many men in there as we can. We would like to be treated the same as a single family, and that's what we want to develop there for these guys that live there, that this is their family. New group of guys, and this is how we establish some accountability in recovery. So the more we put in there, I think the more, I know Keith came along, he's my housing director, he wanted to kind of elaborate a little bit on some of the findings studies that have been done, so can I allow Keith to speak for a minute?
We'll hold that to the,
To the public?
yep,
Okay,
to the public hearing.
all right.
I wonder if you could tell us about your success rate in our community with your program, and how do you define success, and how is the program doing?
Well, I think the program's doing great. I know the success rate while the guys are in our program is real good. It's 80% guys that are in it are staying in it and, going the long term until they decide to move back out. Now, once they move back out, it's a little hard to track how they do. Occasionally we do get guys that come back, I always say, well, we're going through life together, and if you need to come back, you come back in. I would say, they say that like 1 in 10 that come into a treatment center will be successful. And I think our rates are much higher than that. I think all the guys that come into Building Men for Life, at least 80% of them are doing well. And that's a fantastic number. Yeah. So, guys that have recovery housing versus not going into recovery housing, I think there's a 12% increase on their success rate. I think John Hopkins did a study on that. And Keith can elaborate more on that because he follows it. Keith is also the fellow that fills the houses and keeps our waiting list. We always have either 15 to 20 guys that are on a waiting list waiting to come in, looking for a place, a safe, sober place, There are other places in Holland, we got the Holland Rescue Mission, great place. But to have a good place what you can call it's a home. It's a family. And we give these guys, housekeeping chores and we require them to do community service if they're not employed, and that would be to go out in the community and help at Community Action House or, just get out there and make sure you're helping to make a difference,
Tell me about their employment and how do they get around during the day? Do they all own cars? How do if they get a job, how do they get to the job and so forth? What's their mobility like?
Well, some of them have cars, and we do require all of our guys who have cars that they also have insurance and a driver's license because some of them try to, put the cart before the horse sometimes. But a lot of guys use bicycles or they walk. They use the transit system in town here, Max Bus. They usually, a lot of guys are working, we got guys at Wendy's and Myers and, just a lot of guys up by the Heinz and Bentler. So there's a lot of job opportunities here in Holland. And if guys are willing to work, off they go. So by the time they get into a level 2 house, they need to be employed. So that's one of the requirements, So.
Is that a natural transition? They start in 1 and they transition to 2,
Yeah.
and then they're out at that point, typically,
Yep.
or
And we
hopefully?
we let them make the decision when they're ready to go, because I can suggest things or we can tell them this is what you need to do. But really, if a guy can make up his own decisions on what to do and when he feels he's ready, I think that's the best thing because when you tell guys what they need to do or what they have to do, you usually get a little pushback. But if it's their idea, it's the best way to have it. Okay, well, we have what we call a wellness plan, and the guys will set some goals, long-term goals, short-term goals, and they work with a recovery coach, and the recovery coach, says, well, how are you doing towards that goal, and of getting employment, or they want to move to a level 2. Well, okay, you think you're ready for that, and then finding an apartment in this area has been kind of hard. Housing there's quite a shortage here. You guys all know that. So for these guys to go out, we've had a couple guys that have grouped up together and went and rented their own place, you know, and have been, and, you know, we still see them, they follow up with us, and it's a good way to do it, you know. They kind of pool their assets so they can afford a place, so.
It looks like you have, you know, something like 17 or 18 buildings in town, is
Yep.
that correct?
Mhm.
What has been your experience with the people living in those homes getting along with the neighbors, or not getting along with the neighbors? What is your history on all that?
It's been pretty good. It's been pretty good. There's a little push at the beginning. We have a little push over at the one neighbor. We shared the driveway with him. After about 2 years, that kind of calmed down, and actually, they called us a couple times because we have cameras on our property, and they had something going on. They wanted to see if our camera had caught something going on at their place. But I think all in all, we try to get along well with the neighbors. We try to keep our yards looking nice, so sometimes there's a little conflict on, we have the best looking yard. But that's just what guys argue about, I guess, grass. But I think all in all, the people, once they notice that these guys are clean and sober, these guys aren't actively using, we are tested. These guys, we do encourage them to, you know, go to the nearest church in your neighborhood, right? A lot of guys live on 14th, they're going to the Boulevard Church there, and that's just been a really nice development. And so I think all in all, with the neighborhoods, we try to be a good neighbor. If the neighbor needs something, we're more than willing to help. And at the same time, one gal on 12th Street, she had a little pushback at first, but now she's bringing cookies and stuff over to the guys and being very helpful. So,
What about your on-site management? Do you have an on-site manager for this? Are you proposed to have an on-site manager for this property?
Yep. Usually in the level 1, we have a gentleman that's been in our program. The guy that's going to be at this house, he's been in our program for, I would say 2 years. He is on kind of a disability. So he doesn't need to be gone to a job, so he can be at the house all the time. And we have that with all 4 of our level 1s, that the management there is there all the time, which is kind of nice. And some of our level 2s, you know, everybody, the house managers there also work, so they're gone from the house. But
What kind of authority does that manager have over, you know, everything that goes on in the house?
Well,
what kind of authority do you give them?
well, they have the authority to make sure things are kept tight. You know, if there's any kind of problems, they're the guy that calls 911, and then they notify us. If there's a guy that's having trouble, they administer the drug test, they administer breathalyzers at the house. And then, you know, if a guy does have a slip and he relapses, and it's like, well, he's removed from our program. But now what do we do with this fella, you know? We can't throw him on the street. We need to find another place, you know. What can we do for you? Can we get you over to the hospital if you know, we don't know what's going on with him? Or, you know, what's the next step? And that house manager will stay with him. You know, do you need to go to maybe to a detox, to Turning Point for, you know, or try to help him to the next, you know, so he's not abandoned. Well, what's the next step for him? He can't stay at our house. He's got to, you know, we'll provide him transportation to the Mission, the hospital, or a treatment center. But that's our policy, and we stick by that. There's no exceptions. So, but the house managers, they really don't. You know, they'll kind of give us a call and say, I'm having trouble with this guy, or you know. And usually either myself or Keith, the housing director, will then head over there and we'll talk with the fella and try to work out any problems that they have. But the house managers are very responsible on keeping the house clean and in order, and making sure the curfews are maintained. So they do have a lot of authority, and I think the guys respect their house manager as a guy that, you know, hey, you're in charge here, you know, and then we also have what's called a coordinator that works with the house manager, and the coordinator is responsible to make sure that some of the safety things, the smoke detectors, fire extinguishers are all checked weekly, change furnace filters, that kind of stuff. So he works with a coordinator, so.
The, if I can continue asking questions.
You can, but I've got some.
It's okay, Fred.
Because I think that we all have the same kind of questions about this. The number of people that you're proposing for this house is quite large by our estimation, by my estimation anyway. When I walk the neighborhood over there, I don't think that there are many houses that have that many people in a family that living in that neighborhood. And so I have a question to you about what is your break-even point at that house? How many people do you actually need in that house to break even financially?
Well, as far as on the financial point of it, it isn't a financial thing for me. I mean, and that's not what we base it on. I base it on is how many guys can we help?
Yeah.
You know, more on the ministry side.
Yeah.
I think last time I shared with you guys, I didn't bring any finances papers with me today, but the houses are all kind of grouped together.
I see.
The whole one
program.
bank account, the whole thing. At the end of the year, we always, if we counted on, if we take what the community donates to us out of the pot, we'd be about 50 grand in the hole. So every year we're kind of in the red, but this year, you know, we had a lot of really nice donors. We got about 150 grand in. So that has worked out well. So,
You know,
what would be the breaking point at that house? When I walked through with Tricia and Keith, and we kind of counted how we would put the beds, and we probably would think 9 maybe there. We went with the number 11 because the city of Holland measured all the rooms and said, if you're a single family, you can have 11 folks, you know, mom, dad, and 9 kids. So, you know, I've always kind of been told that through the Disability Act, it says that guys with disabilities that are being housed should be treated equally as a single family. So that's kind of how we based the number 11 off from. I think we probably thought maybe we'd do 9. Now, is that feasibly going to work out? Usually, guys come and go. We have a few weeks where there might be a few beds open, right? I know we have the one house, which we'll talk about next, has two rooms and 4 beds sitting empty, and that has been a lot of grief because the guys that live there say, well, we got extra rooms. Why can't we get so-and-so, you know, why can't we use them? And I have to say, because, you know, we don't have permission from the zoning board to put anybody in these rooms. So they have to remain closed. And it's kind of hard. It's hard for me to say we have rooms, but we can't use them when I'm looking at the house. And, you know, these guys, they all start to get jobs. Some guys are working second shift. Some guys are working third shift. I go over to the house, and there's nobody there but the house manager. I says, well, where's your 5 guys? Well, they're all working, you know. So the house is, you know, basically empty, and the guys do work different shifts. And over there has none of our houses really have had parking issues lately. I know we're limited to 4 cars per driveway normally, if it will allow that. But most of the guys now are on foot or on bicycles or mass transit. So that really hasn't been an issue for us at any place. And I think the new house, the one we're talking about, has a pretty good sized driveway. So it's very nice. But
Is the 11, is that include the manager spending the night or not?
the manager already lives there, yeah.
He'll live there,
He will
so-
be a live-in manager.
So is it 11 plus 1, or is it
No.
11 with the manager?
11 with the manager.
11 with the manager.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Because I believe the manager, doesn't he usually have a room to himself?
He does, yep.
Okay. I
Yep.
thought I saw that with the other applications.
Yep, and at 439, I don't know, we have a floor plan here probably, but it will have 3 single-man rooms and 3 two-man rooms. So
We're
they say-
still on 495.
Yeah, 495.
So when we get to the other one, I can pull the floor plan up.
495, I think that is, I think that's 3 single-man rooms there and 3 double-man rooms.
Yeah, one has, I think, 3 potentially in it.
Oh, I didn't put it up.
Yeah, there was the occupancy calculations there. So I was gonna ask a couple things. So Keith has got, was it Keith?
Yes,
Keith has got more specific numbers of gentlemen on the waiting list.
Yep.
Do you know, you mentioned that there are other programs, but yet there's still a waiting list. So there's clearly demand, there's constantly demand by the sound
Yeah.
of things. Is this a lot of guys that are, do you know, are they going to shelters in the meantime while they're looking for a place like this that's more permanent? Are they from out of town that doesn't
I
have, from a
believe
town
so.
that doesn't have a place like?
you know, some of the guys are in different treatment centers and they'll be scheduled to be moved in when they get off from their treatment center. So they're on our waiting list and they're scheduled in there. Then we do have some guys that I know they're staying at the Mission. Some guys are homeless in their cars. Some guys are sleeping across the street in the park there in that gazebo.
Yeah.
I've got a couple guys out there already, but so yeah, as far as where they are, usually it's Keith always tells me if we can't find them a place fairly soon, they end up somewhere, usually in the hospital, because they turn to their drinking and drugging, and then end up in the ER, and then from the ER they'll probably transfer them to a detox center for 10 days, and then, you know, we actually don't take anybody in unless they can pass our 14-panel drug screen. So even a guy that's been out on the street using for the last couple of days, he comes in and he wants to move in, we can't take him in until he can pass that test. Because if he can't stop for 3 days, I mean, we're not a detox center and we're not a treatment center. We're the next step up from that. We want our guys they're on board with recovery. They want to be sober. They want to be clean. They just need to have a good environment, you know, where they're away from their, I don't know, family that they, or friends they used to run with, you know, just in a place they can go, hey, this is a safe place. There isn't going to be any drugs or alcohol here. So,
Yeah, I just wanted
Yeah.
to establish and make sure that anybody that listens to this in the future, listens to or watches our YouTube video of this, is going to be understanding that what you're asking for, the maximum number is that maximum number that a single family could have. You're asking for your program to be treated like you would a single family.
like a single
And
family.
you're asking for the maximum number in part because the city told you can, and in part because you want to serve people that do not have an alternative like this. So you're trying to make necessary accommodation for folks that don't have it otherwise.
Yep.
And then all the folks in this unit are going to have, or that they are all disabled folks. That includes the what do you call that? The housing
House
manager.
manager. These guys fall under the Disability Act of a substance use disorder. And I believe that Ronald Reagan passed the disability law that said guys that have a substance use disorder and are living in a group home need to be treated as a single family. Yeah, in the same, and then I also do respect this, you know, the city of Holland has its ordinance for unrelated adults, so they have a little clash there, and I get that's why we're here. So hoping that I'm hoping that we can go with and help as many guys as we want, and I mean as you guys will allow, and I think we provide a good service for the community. I think we're making a difference in a lot of guys' lives, and that's what it's about. You know, I guess we're all going through life together, and I've been here before in front of you guys, and I'll probably come again. and we'll work on together, because we gotta build a good, strong community, and recovery housing is a big part of that. And I can't wait till Keith gets up, because he can tell you how much the federal government is behind it, with different grant money that's now becoming available, and there's the opiate task force money that's coming available, and Keith is just Keith Building Men for Life has opened the Soul Bar, which is a community center, and that's right next to Getty Church. For anybody that wants to stop in there, there's Keith can fill you in on that too. They got a pool table there. We have since it's opened, they now have AA meetings and NA meetings, and there's about 15 different groups that are using that facility as a safe place to go. So it's called Soul Bar, and again, Keith can fill you in, because that's his baby. He felt he was led to open something like that, and just like I felt to open Building Men for Life back, I was coming through out of my recovery, and what do I do next? The 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous says, we need to help the next guy, and that's my outreach. So that's how that started 15 years ago, is one house, and that was before I knew I had to talk to Tricia.
Now, I do remember you from the last application, but I wanted to ask two more official sounding questions just
Okay.
for the record. Is the recovery residence licensed by the state as a substance use disorder facility?
Yes, they are. Yep.
And then is the recovery residence a certified member of an entity that conducts its own inspections and has its own standards for the benefit of the occupants?
Yep. We are created by MAR, which is the Michigan Association of Recovery Residents, and they fall under the NAR, which is the National Association of Recovery Residents. So,
That's all my questions.
and we did get 495 inspected by MAR today, and they came in and they gave us the green light, so we do have their certificate. We're still waiting for our occupancy permit, but from our rental inspection. Should be good.
And do we have any other questions from the board?
Randy, thank you very much for your patience in going through all of this. Your questions, you've been, again, you've come
Yeah.
to us and.
That's my life and my passion, so,
You're very gracious with us, and you're very patient with us, and we appreciate it.
Okay.
You mentioned you purchased this from another nonprofit,
Yep.
and
Yes,
that was
sir.
being used as a housing facility for.
From what I was told, women with children,
Okay.
or just women that were in recovery.
Okay,
It was NOLA, which is
no one lives alone.
No One Lives Alone, yeah.
I think, okay. And then, were there any exceptions, or it was no more than 4 unrelated people in that home? Okay.
To the best of our knowledge, yes. We were never contacted, and we, at that time, didn't do rental inspections either. I don't also know how long they owned that house.
Okay. And then. So, on the application, going through the site plan, and something you mentioned previously, you mentioned this would be a level 1, which is an entry level, which everything would be double occupancy, you said?
Yeah, if
But-
possible.
Okay, so if possible, all right,
Mhm.
because on the site, or on the floor plan, there are bedrooms 3, 5, and 6 are single occupant. And I was trying to find, I don't know, maybe I'm missing one, but I count 10 beds in this. Maybe I'm missing the 11th one on the site plan. Is there one planned for the basement?
So if you look at the occupancy sheet that's on the screen,
Oh, I'm
one
sorry.
of the bedrooms is a 3-person approved bedroom according to the City of Holland occupancy regulations. So I'm guessing That might be why you're seeing 10 beds on the floor plan. Be-
So we would
Yeah.
probably put 2 in that room, and then, then there would be, the house manager, he has a single man room. Usually we leave 1 room for, like the house coordinator, cause he's, that's a kind of a position, so he can have the single man room, he's maybe been there longer than some of the new guys. And I know over at our country club facility, we do have a single man room there that we use for a guy that's handicapped that would have he's got a wheelchair or walker, or he needs some other equipment in the room, and it's too much to put 2 guys in 1 room. So it works out good for a person with a physical handicap to have a single room. And usually the beds are lower to the ground, and whatever we need to do to accommodate for someone with a disability. So that's probably how we'll lay it out.
Okay. And then, but you're asking for 11 max, although your floor plan as proposed shows 10 as drawn up. And when you purchase the homes, you're aware of the zoning that, for unrelated, based on the zoning. And is there an advantage to the single-family homes that you're looking at versus, say, a facility like the one over at 16th and Country Club, where that's zoned differently to allow for more unrelated? Is that correct?
So that is in a commercial zone district, but there's 2 dwelling units there, and I think a total of 16?
16? I thought on your MAR,
I think 16.
I
But
think
it's
it's
still
certified by MAR
considered-
up to 16 on the,
Yeah.
That's considered 2 dwelling units.
okay,
So there's 8 per dwelling unit at that facility.
okay. Just curious,
Yeah.
is there a benefit to the home sites that are in neighborhoods versus something like that facility, which is not far from, the neighborhoods? It's a little bit more in it is zoned commercial, it's in the commercial area, but it's right down the street, it's right down the street from some apartment buildings. I don't know,
Yeah.
is it, with these, when you're buying these locations, and I know you're fixing them up very nicely.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I've not heard any complaints from anybody even the neighbors, about how your organization is doing. You're doing wonderful things to these
Right.
homes. Thank you.
Yep.
As
It's
a
good to
citizen,
hear.
thank you.
It's good to hear it made it up here to the top.
Thank-
Yeah.
I'm a neighbor to you
Yeah.
in the Heights, so
Right.
I see what you're doing with these homes in the core city, and you do a very nice job. You
Yeah.
maintain them very nicely. So, I was just wondering, the choice of the homes being these single-family homes where the zoning is strict, where you're coming to us
All right.
consistently.
Well, personally, I do like the country club setting. It's a bigger building. I mean, you got more guys there. There's more services. There's, you got a big kitchen, big freezers, and the guys like it there. And the recovery coach office is there. Our office is there. I mean, the guys have good resources right on the bus route. So that building is perfect. But the problem is there isn't a lot of those buildings around that we can use. I really like the Hallmark Rehabilitation Center that was on 32nd. We were just short $2 million to buy it, but it was
What was that all?
it was a beautiful retirement home. It would have 50 rooms. That was like, oh wow, that's a dream of mine. Look how much we could do there. We could have a detox center. We could do so much with that. But that's just the way. The other things that are available are the residential, and what we want is these guys to be part of our community. We want them to blend into the neighborhood. We want to get rid of that stigma of, it's okay, but not in my backyard. We don't want you here. We want you to be welcome. We want to be welcome in the neighborhood. We want to make amends for our disability and our dysfunction that we had, and so the smaller houses were good. They're not very financial feasible. When it comes down, you can only have 4 guys at a house. We have a couple 4-man houses, and we have a couple that we've stretched to 5, I think, because that's all they will hold. Those houses work good as a level 2. Guys are pretty independent. They've got their job. They've been, clean for a year. They're starting to rebuild their lives and, looking for other possibilities to go. But so the smaller houses are nice, but they become a family there, and sometimes those guys just like to stay together after a while. We got some guys that live on their Hope House, and they've been there a while. They all get along fairly good, and fairly at $650 a month, they're doing pretty cheap, right? Because you can't find any place for that in town. I don't believe, but Anyway, so yeah, the bigger places, if there was more old schools, retirement homes that closed. This one that was NOLA had, I thought they were registered already and had reasonable accommodations. In fact, they did have another one on Central, which was it was one number different of the address, right? So when I had asked, Tricia said, "Oh yeah, there's reasonable accommodations. It'll come right over with the house." And I'm like, "Okay, good," but it was a different house on the same block, and they didn't sell that one, did they? Oh, they did? Okay. So anyway, when I first got into this house, I thought everything was going to be pretty much in order as far as with you guys in the city, but it turned out it wasn't. So apparently we got to make things right and do things right. So I know it was a adult foster care at one time, and they have emergency lighting, and so emergency lighting really isn't required. The batteries were dead. The thing was shot, and I said, let's just keep it there. It'll make the house safer and a better place for these guys, right? So cost us a little money, but we kept the emergency lighting system in, and that's the way we want to do it, So we put the new furnace in, put the new roof on, and completed the 35 other items on our repair list.
All right, thank you, Randy.
All
Do we have
right.
any other questions from the board?
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Yep.
At this time, we're going to open the public hearing for comment or concern specific to this particular application for 495 Central Ave.
I will also tell the board that we received one email that was not in favor of either this application or the other application. A copy of the email was from Marcus Wonder and was provided to the board.
Thank you.
Could I ask where that resident lived?
Apple Avenue.
Apple Avenue.
So not near, not adjacent to this.
That's correct.
Okay, but they were obviously within 300 feet of one of these sites?
Yes, they own rental properties in the neighborhood, I believe, of this house on Central.
Oh, I see, okay.
Alrighty. If you could state your name and address.
My name's Keith Walters, and I live at 8491 South Maple Court in Zeeland. And I've been working with Building Men for Life for the last 15 years, since the very beginning with Randy there. Well, a little after. I really handle the housing portion of it, the function of it, and I fill the houses, and I screen all the applicants to make sure they're prepared and ready for recovery residents, that they have some sobriety time, that they have a program in place. And, a couple things I heard with your questioning, One is the definition of a recovery residence is a single-family home in a residential neighborhood. And that's nationwide, and that is what it is. We kind of had a hard time approving Country Club because it was almost not a residence. And that kind of takes away from returning people back to being good, upright members of society and living in the neighborhood, you know, just being in the neighborhood. And so that is it. But today we've been housing 100 people basically since around 2010. We've done it in a lot of houses, we've done it in less houses, but this is the number that kind of Holland likes. It's about 100. Now that need is drastically growing because of the pandemic caused a lot of addiction issues to really grow out of control. And but for the last 15 years, that's kind of been the magic number, is 100 beds. And then there's a nice turnaround there with that. And so it's not like we've been growing and expanding and going crazy in the city and taking over. It really is, we're just trying to maintain the need for the 100 beds. On average, I get 65 phone calls a day, about 30 emails. I'm at my wit's end. I love to go to the cabin and relax for a day. It's absolutely out of control with the number of calls I get per day. And I screen those, and like today there's 37 on the waiting list. And they call daily. They stop in the office daily, and
These are requests for housing?
requests
These are
for
requests.
recovery housing.
Okay.
And some are quite desperate, you know, and some are not. You know, the couple things is recovery does not mean addict. And people in recovery want to do right. Out of our 100 participants, over 80 of them are employed today. They're all going to work every day. Many of them work 12-hour-a-day jobs because they have all this wreckage of your past you got to clean up and pay for, you know. So the reason recovery homes have so many people in it and why that works is because the thing you cannot have in early recovery is isolation. Because if you're stuck in your own head, you're going to go use something. You need accountability, you need support, and you need people around you. This is why we do the 2-man rooms. But if all our participants, I mean, within 30 days they're employed, 30 to 60 at most, they're employed. And the house has 4 people in it, and 3 work a different shift. All members of that home are alone. And all the goodness of a recovery residence isn't there. So, I mean, you're all welcome to come to Country Club with 16 people in it anytime you want. It is very rarely more than 4 people home. And that's just kind of how it is. I mean, they all work, and they all have to go to meetings. They go to support groups, they go to counseling, they go to drug counseling. They're meeting at Reach for Recovery. And they a lot of them go to church. A lot of our guys go to church. So it is rare. Today I gave a tour of the place, and there was 1 guy home at Country Club. 1 guy. So it's not like it's just you have 10 people sitting there in a house doing nothing all day. It's basically a spot to sleep. But what we're looking for is that while you're there resting, that you're not alone, you're not isolating, and you don't have this opportunity to pick up a drug or drink. You have accountability. And that's really the purpose of the recovery home. You know, in July, we get a lot of school teachers because they got to sober up so they can go back to teach school. You know, our house on 21st had a police officer in it most of last year. You know, I mean, it's not the people you think. We got lawyers living with us. We have doctors living with us. I mean, we're not talking about just, you know, what you kind of think of when you think of an addict. it really affects everyone. We got preachers. So I just remember last time we had one neighbor who kind of was nervous, and the house next door did have a police officer living in it. And so what I'm trying to do by coming up here is just kind of break that stigma of what an addict looks like compared to what a person in recovery looks like. They're very different. And but we do monitor our homes quite closely. We got a partnership with Grand Valley University, and we do their public health department, so we get free access to epidemiology, things like that. They run studies on the neighborhoods, and we've been watching property values, and we've been watching crime rates, and according to our numbers, nothing's been affected, but we do watch that in case we need to make a change in a neighborhood to make sure it stays consistent. And, you know, on the other token, I'm in recovery. Building Men for Life saved my life. You know, actually, there wasn't Building Men. Randy saved my life. And I'm telling you, it is a community, right? It's people helping people. It's just Joe helping Bob. And that's what makes it work. But we do partner with Grand Valley with occupational therapy. They come in and they work with guys that are struggling, that may have barriers to employment. Maybe, I don't know, can't figure out a computer. We have people that come in and help with that. They're not thrown in the house, they're not left there. And it's not, you know, there's a lot of support. So I guess that's what I have to say. I think Building Men for Life has been a great program for me personally, and I'm happy to give back and share. And you know, one of the problems is we've had 2,000 people through the program now, and they're still doing well, many of them, and they want to hang out, they want to be a part of Building Men for Life, and that we didn't really have a way for them to do that. So we opened the Soul Bar, their community center. And that's really for everybody. A lot of our past participants are married now, have kids, and their families are together. And now we can all get together in this community center and continue this family and fellowship that we started in the houses. And but now they have their own house, but we're continuing the support and the atmosphere in the community center. And I guess that's all I got to say. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Alrighty.
Yes, my name is Jerry Becker. I live at 13 East 21st Street, right around the corner from 495. I've lived there for over 35 years. The group home that was there for many years was licensed by the state for 6 people, unmarried. I don't know if they had a variance or not, but with 6 residents and a caretaker, it was a full house. And there's a fair amount of traffic. Everybody there had to also work, even though they had issues. Many of them worked at Can Do and Hope College, but it was a very busy house with 6 residents. There's pressure for doing laundry, meals, the bathroom, and I felt 6 would be a good number for this home. There wouldn't really be any increase in traffic, excuse me. But it's a great organization, and I think that it will be an asset to our neighborhood. Some of the neighbors, not so happy about it, but I've seen people in recovery, and if they try, they'd make it. And they'd all usually need support. But I just think that 11 people in the house is too many. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will close the public hearing, seeing nobody else to speak in regards to this item. The board will deliberate.
I'm impressed by the public testimony from these gentlemen today. It's had a positive effect on me. I think that they are doing a good job in the community, and much further than that, they're taking care to make sure that these homes are very successful, that they're minimizing the impact in their neighborhoods. They're employed. They're trying to get everybody employed. So many of the activities that they're doing are very purposeful and very positive in our community. And there is a definite need in our community to support these buildings like this. And so I'm supportive of their plan to expand this to allow 11 people in.
I know we talked during the study session about the potential for there to be 11 people who are a family. They can be as functional or dysfunctional as they please in that house. They could be a family of 11 people. So the fact to me that all 11 folks are going to be disabled people, to my mind, says that they do have the same standing as a single family, members of a single family would. So if they came to us and asked, hey, we want 12, we want 13, we want to pack them in like sardines, then we'd have other conversations at hand. But they're only asking that they be treated like a single family residence as part of their program for folks who are disabled, and I'm on board with this.
Well, I think as was mentioned was, they want these homes to blend into the neighborhood. And I don't think at that type of level that we're talking about 11 people blends into the neighborhood. There's not many homes that have that type of density. If you look at some statistics from the city of Holland, we just don't, that just doesn't exist.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there are that many households that have 11 folks. I don't know if the city can chime in on that. But I just know from my personal experience, I've got a number of people in my church group who have adopted or are fostering kids in addition to their biological ones. They have big families. So, I don't know 11, but I do know a 9, an 8, and a 7, 2 6s. So, in a way, it's like, okay, well, we say that 11 people in this house is fine. This is totally good. So, I know I had voiced some concerns about the potential for traffic. We don't have restrictions with, as I understand it, we have a minimum number of parking spaces that have to be on the lot. There's not a maximum number of cars that people in a residence can operate. That's correct, right? I thought we had that established
Yes.
in the study session.
That's correct.
So-
There is no maximum number of cars as long as they are all legally parked.
Right.
And to answer your other question, I don't think, if I had some time to ask some other folks on census data, we could probably come up with family size. This is one of the largest rental houses that I'm aware of in the city of Holland.
Mm-hmm.
Most houses, some of the houses that Hope College owns, the really big houses, have higher occupant numbers than this, but this is one of the larger rental properties that we have in town.
And
As to single-family owner-occupied that we don't inspect, I wouldn't have any idea.
and by large, you mean square footage?
By occupancy numbers, based on the sizes of the bedrooms and the
Okay.
size of the home.
Okay. Sorry. I think the key here is the unrelated, and, we talk about families and family sizes, and if there is families and foster children and things of that nature, it's a different dynamic with children and having 2 or 3 in a bedroom together than grown adults snoring, and dealing with their day-to-day lives. going through life together, coming from different backgrounds, not growing up together their entire lives together, going through different ages, different sizes together. There is a reason why we have a family definition in our zoning ordinance that's laid out and spelled out and defined. I'm not opposed to the concept of building men for life at all. I love it. I think it's fabulous. I see it as a successful model. I applaud it and celebrate it. I think it's wonderful. I think this is a bit of a stretch, even on the application. It's only 10 shown. I don't like the idea of going to the very max, no matter what, because it could be 11 family members that could fit in this house as a family. Absolutely, I'm sure that could happen, but I don't think 11 unrelated persons could live in this house cohesively, copacetically, whatever. I'm struggling with that one. And I don't think parking's that big of an issue. I realize I'm an odd duck there when it comes to parking.
Do we have a list of the other properties that Building Men for Life operate and what the numbers are?
That is on their other application for,
21st?
what was the address? Sorry. 439, it's at the very end with their MAR certification. It's the very last page. And I'm not sure if that's their complete list, but it does list a number of homes that are both in and out of the city of Holland. Most of these appear by quick inspection. Most of those appear to be within the city limits. 147th Avenue, not sure if that's in the city limits. Lakewood Boulevard, that is not. 136th Avenue, that is not. But the vast majority of those are.
I think I would also.
In the city limits, and obviously we can't speak to what the zoning is for other homes in the township, because they might have different zoning rules and regulations for allowing larger number of unrelated residents based on their zoning.
I'm kind of with Dan in regards that I love the concept of Building Men for Life, and the need is unquestionable. 11 is a lot, 10 is a lot. The 2 per room makes perfect sense to me. That's 2, 4, 6. With the housing manager is 7. Plus, perhaps a single room to accommodate someone with another, maybe a physical disability. Perhaps 8. I feel like that fits the neighborhood, and certainly this house. It's a large home. I feel like it fits that well, and maybe that's a compromise to get us started. But perhaps it's something where we see how a lesser number goes. If we can find something that works and is agreeable.
Do we have, when we talk about the definition of a family, are we talking about, is there within that definition anything that has to do with age? It says,
No.
once the kids are over 18, then you can only have,
A person
3 of them in the house.
is a person, doesn't matter.
Thank you, Tricia.
age. And family is defined as people related by blood or marriage or adoption or some other circumstance, or for unrelated people.
So keep in mind when we talk about the potential, the number that we've got is that according to the rules as are set up, you could have 11 fully grown adult people. They're just bound by blood, operating in the same in this location. I mean, I love my family, but there's lots of people that have found families, and I don't necessarily see the blood relation versus non-blood relation as being something that dictates whether or not people can get along. And so I would just follow up with, remembering what Dan said of, the dynamic is very different when you've got, a group of kids, sure. But remember that those kids who grow up, and by the numbers that we've got, it says that you could have 11 people of any age related. They could all be fully grown adults with jobs that are working second shift, third shift. And when I think about it in that regard, I'm putting this at basically the exact same level as what they're asking to be treated right now. So I struggle with then saying, well, because these people weren't born in the same family, then they don't get that privilege. I feel like we can't be stepping on toes and say, well, 8 feels nicer to me, or 6 feels nicer to me, because we've got a precedent set that we've got the potential for 11 individuals to live in this house as a single family. A group of disabled folks are saying we want to be treated like a single family for our program. Please do so. I'm struggling with, to me, I'm struggling with how do I set, well, okay, 8's okay. Well, to me, 11's okay, and I can't justify taking the number down, because I've got a list of reasons why we should, in my opinion, be.
I don't think anyone's saying that just because they're not related by blood that they're not family. I fully believe, and that's certainly not what I'm saying. I fully believe these houses going through what they're going through act as a family and support each other. I don't think that's what we're here to talk about, whether they're family or not. I think we're trying to decide because it's written that up to 4 unrelated are allowed to live together. We're trying to decide, okay, how many more is okay? And yes, the house itself can accommodate 11. Do we feel or maybe it's not our job to decide whether that's right for the neighborhood or not, but.
Well, I had a couple of thoughts about that too. I mean, I think when it comes to, one of the things I think about 11 people living in this house is it going to be well managed? Are they going to take care of all the disputes that take place? Are they going to keep people doing the right thing? Are they going to check up on them? In fact, there's a full-time manager at this place, and that's their job. Building Men for Life is not new in Holland. They have a track record of being successful. And when they say they can put 11 people in this house and manage it correctly and live by the policies that they have established successfully in Holland, I'm willing to give them that benefit of the doubt and not try to think how I might do things differently. And furthermore, I think what I said before during the study session, the first thing I did when I looked at this is I looked whether this building fit into the neighborhood very well, or would a large family have a large impact on this neighborhood. And in fact, there's almost nothing close to this house. The entire across the street, there's nothing between this house and Evergreen Commons. There's, on one side, it's just totally blank. On the other side, there's a single family house, but it's not plunked down in the middle of a very dense neighborhood with small houses all around it. This is almost an ideal location for something that is going to try to be set up like this. So I went through my own mental checklist trying to think if there's anything wrong here, and I didn't find anything, and that's why I continue to support it. I support them. I think they know what they're doing, and I think this is something that we should invest in and allow them to go forward with. That's just my own feelings about it.
I would remind the board, whatever the motion is, whatever the vote is, it does take 4 concurring votes to pass whatever motion is put on the table.
That's why I'm trying to be so persuasive.
Yes, and you have a 5-person board tonight, so.
And what I'm tripping over is, having this discussion over the number, and are we requiring a fundamental alteration in the nature of the city zoning program when we're talking about this dramatic change from 4 to 11 of unrelated, where we have a definition of family in our zoning ordinance that's spelled out fairly clearly. And again, I understand the dynamics of family, blood or unblood. It is what it is. We can't rezone. That's not the purpose of this board. You know, and does this request require fundamental alteration in the nature of the city's zoning program? And I'm struggling on that one. And is there an alternative accommodation which may provide an equivalent level of benefit to the applicant? And that's the other one I'm struggling with. The other ones, to me, are a slam dunk, frankly. I support the mission of their organization 100%. I agree with you, Fred. I believe it's, you know, yes, they will have a house manager, and probably better than most blood families that have two working adults that aren't home and
I think
have, or, you know, latchkey kids or whatever you want to call it, you know, Gen X, whatever we were, you know, that didn't have a house manager that was there to settle disputes and things of that nature, that have a support structure that has proven successful, of course, in this community. So I echo those very successful statements and the proven track record. I agree. But the dramatic change here from 4 to 11, or when we're coming back on these over and over again, from going from 4 to 6 to 8 to 10 on the same house, are we looking at fundamental alterations in our zoning program for something like this, or is there a different solution in terms of a different structure, building, home, that makes more sense? And that was the nature of my questioning, in terms of, I agree, you know, having people in recovery, it's such an awesome point that addicts are different than those that are in recovery. I thank you very much for pointing that out to us. And it is a very big fundamental difference. I don't want to be viewed as splitting hairs over something like this, but again, this is just what I'm struggling with. I think there's a workable solution. I think this board has made or attempted or tried to make reasonable accommodations, alternative accommodations in the past, and I like compromises. And I'd like to get to a compromise that's workable, that can see 4 yays today, for that, you know, that we can agree to, that helps them and their, I don't know, clients, or your, if that's, well, I'm sorry, family. I'll say it, family. Yes.
Dan, I appreciate what you're saying, but you know, it's also a fundamental change in the neighborhood, and what the neighborhood would like to be and what they would like to see. We've had neighbors talk to us about that. And then going back, you know, I did, where I got my number was from the Census Bureau for Holland, Michigan, and then for 2018, 2022, persons per household, 2.39. We're looking at a huge difference here. And so as we're trying to have fundamental respect for the neighborhood as well, we've got to think of those numbers, and we need to think of what's best for a ministry and how they can minister to the people, the men that are there, their family, and the neighborhoods around them.
I would disagree that this is looking at a fundamental change to the nature of the neighborhood. Simply as a reminder that we have the ability for big families to be in Holland. I do know that I've got a couple neighbors who are just, you know, solo in their houses. Maybe they drive the average down. That's part of the reason why it's at 2.3. And I know some that are big families too. I'm struggling to justify why we have to come down because I think that the additional layer is that this is not a landlord who just wants to rent to like 11 random people. They can be college kids or, you know, any old body. This is an organization, this is a nonprofit organization that is serving disabled folks. And they are protected under fair housing laws. I feel like there's an extra layer that needs to be considered as well. And maybe my point of, you know, pushing the found family element dragged us into, well, you know, what constitutes family and all that jazz. But we really should also be considering the extra little layer that I can understand. And clearly, in the past, people had concerns over unrelated people being in the same household, saying, okay, well, you know, let's keep it at 4. Why 4? I don't know. The range seems to be 3 to 5, but you know, I'm not sure why that number was chosen. At the same time, the number 11 was chosen for single family, and this is the nonprofit group of disabled folks that are needing to be treated like a single family. And when you ask me to compromise to a different number, I'm struggling to justify it given the list that I've gone through, answers that we've gotten. Dan, you had asked, well, you had said that the question about alternative accommodation was one that you were getting hung up on. I get hung up on that one often too. I think part of why I would say that there's not really an alternative accommodation is that there's not a ton of open housing stock that a nonprofit would be able to. It's not a matter of, well, you know, you want 11 here, but there's like all these places down the street that are unoccupied that you could buy right now and get your guys into places. And at the same time, any reduction in the number that they can provide means that those guys, as Randy attested to, and I take him at his word for this, these guys are going to have to find shelters, or they're going to be living in their cars, or they're going to have to figure something out. They're going to be over in Centennial Park, and I'm not comfortable with the idea of saying let's reduce this number because we just don't like it. We're uncomfortable with that number being so high, because I'm also, again, I've gone through all the lists. I can logically, you know, answer a lot of these questions in favor of the applicant. And when we talk about reducing the number, we're also talking about telling those guys, for contrary to all the findings of fact that I've got here, that we're not comfortable with the number, and sorry, but you have to be on a park bench tonight. And I'm struggling with that. I'm struggling to go against the findings of fact that I've got and say, let's drop that number so that we can all be more comfortable. I mean, I was even uncomfortable with 11, but as I go through the findings of facts, like I can't come up with good reasons in my mind that tell me that number has to be lower. That's why I'm where I'm at. I can make a motion, but we need 4 to approve. What are you guys feeling right now?
Well, I've certainly said my piece. I'm for the same reasons that you've just given. They've checked off all the boxes, and it's, to me, they've met the test that are listed throughout all of these things, and it's something to support. So I would be in favor of it, but that's where I am.
So something that I'm thinking about also is, you know, they talked about that roughly there's 100 people in Holland in recovery houses, and that was kind of the number that, you know, above and below by X amount is what is certainly needed. If there's 37 on the wait list right now, it seems like there's far more than that needed. But even if 495 Central's added to their list of properties, even as a 4-bedroom, they're at 100 beds. Before we talk about our next application. So anything above and beyond that is over 100, which I think is needed. I'm still not convinced that 11 is the appropriate thing to do at this time for this property in this neighborhood. Even though I like the property, its location as far as what's not next to it, directly next door and across the street. It is a large home, and Building Men for Life is certainly a proven foundation to handle this, and I think they're doing a fantastic job. I see the need. I just, with someone speaking already today here, that they weren't sure that 11 was the appropriate number. Someone that lives in the neighborhood, that's where I'm at. And so for me, that's the last question. Is there an alternative accommodation which can provide some benefit to the applicant?
When we talk about that criterion, is there alternative accommodation, are we talking about other buildings in Holland? Isn't that what we're saying? In other words,
I guess I'm talking about it as, I feel like we're all over 4 on this house. I just don't know that we're to 11.
Oh, so you think that criterion is about the number of people in the house and not about
Right.
Alternative accommodation?
I see it as us going over 4 is an accommodation.
I think that's
Anything.
that's the central issue here, is we're going, with, what we're being asked for is to approve in excess of 4. You know,
On this
and the
particular
num-
criterion, you think?
And the ask is 11. He's requesting 11, but the zoning ordinance is no more than 4. So is there an alternative accommodation which may provide an equivalent level of benefit to the applicant? Just reading it straight through.
But then if you look at the yes and no columns, I think it's, can I live in house A or can I live in house B? Can I go to Holland Hospital or can I go to Spectrum in Zealand? Is there another program that can support the need? So they're here asking for a reasonable accommodation for persons with disabilities. So as you go through the checklist and check off, do they meet all of these things? When you get down to is there an alternative accommodation which may provide an equivalent level of benefit to the applicant? If the answer to that is no, Building Men for Life is a one-of-a-kind program. This program serves these disabled folks based on the program measures described by the group. If there's not another program in the area, if they turn away the people on the waiting list, is there an alternative program? I think the answer is no, there's not an alternative program.
That's
But-
what I
Okay,
was
so the
asking.
accommodation has to do with the program,
Just
not
to
with
do
the
with the pro-
number.
not with
of-
the number.
Right.
Okay.
The number is based on the conditions in the neighborhood, the needs of the organization, the financial needs of the organization, the needs of the folks on the waiting list, the needs of the community. I mean, you have to you guys have a very difficult job. So thank you all for volunteering, because these folks are all volunteers. We buy them dinner, but they don't get paid. So thank you for volunteering your time and taking the time and the diligence and asking the questions and thinking about it. But you are charged with looking at the whole picture, not just the one house, not just the number of people on the waiting list or the number. We're not solving the homeless in Holland problem tonight with this one request.
No, we're not.
Is it a part? Probably, but it's not. So you have to really look at the bigger picture. The neighborhood, the organization, the folks being served, and the people that you heard from tonight that have lived in that neighborhood for over 30 years, and you heard public comment on what they deem is appropriate in their neighborhood.
Well, why don't we just start off? I mean, let's try to move this along instead of talking more about it. Why don't I make a motion? Why don't I move that we approve the request for a special exception for the housing accommodation to operate a recovery residence at 495 Central Avenue, requesting 11 unrelated persons to live together as a family. That's my motion.
And do we have support?
I'll support.
We have a motion, we have support. Findings of fact?
Findings of fact, okay. If I can just, if I can use the criteria that we're talking about here. The requested accommodation for a group of individuals with a disability is protected under the fair housing laws. The accommodation necessary to make housing available for these individuals, it is necessary. This accommodation is necessary to make housing available for these individuals.
I'm gonna stop you before we get too far.
Okay?
You're just restating what the question is instead of the why. You have to answer the why for me.
Okay, well, the first one, there is no why. It is protected under the fair housing laws, okay? Is the accommodation necessary to make housing available for these individuals? Yes, this accommodation is necessary to make housing available for these individuals. There's a successful formula for these kind of individuals with these kind of problems, and this is the kind of housing that is available for a successful program. Will the housing be used only by persons with a disability? Yes, each individual is interviewed, is selected because they have a disability of a certain kind. And so it's a guarantee. Does the accommodation impose an undue financial or administrative burden to the city? No, it doesn't. In addition to the staff hours that are already invested in helping evaluate this property with a number of beds, and number of persons per bed, those kind of things are already available by the city, and so there's no undue financial administrative burden to the city from the program. Does the request require a fundamental alteration in the nature of the city's zoning program? I interpret this question to mean whether they are living within the zoning that is available to this property, which I think is, well, what is it? It's medium-high density. No. Traditional neighborhood residential, right. It stays within that definition, that zoning category, traditional neighborhood residential. And so, no, it doesn't require a fundamental alteration in the nature of the city's zoning program. Is there an alternate accommodation which may provide an equivalent level of benefit to the applicant? I don't think so. I think this is a unique program that's operating in the city of Holland, and so there is not an alternate that these individuals can go to instead. Is that sufficient for findings of fact?
I'm still catching up. Give me just a second.
Okay.
Is it all right if I add 3 more once you've caught up?
Are you the additional factors? Is that where you're going, or
Yes.
adding on to? Okay, just 1 second here. All right, I think I'm good.
Okay, I also wanted to mention that the recovery residence is licensed by the state of Michigan as a substance use disorder facility. The recovery residence is a certified member of the Michigan Association of Recovery Residences, which is within the National Alliance of Recovery Residences. It has conducts its own inspections, has its own standards for the benefit of the occupants, and the property will be managed by a person living on site.
Good with me.
Okay, I think we're ready to call for a vote.
The motion is to approve. Barr,
No.
Davis,
Yes.
Sorick,
No.
Van Antwerp,
Yes?
Fusak.
No.
The motion does not pass. It was 3-2.
Tricia, are we able to discuss other options here as to a number?
That's a Derek question. Can they make another motion to approve in an attempt, or does it automatically fail?
I believe that it automatically passed.
While you're looking, I think you mentioned that in a previous case, there was an attempt that was attempted, and it didn't make it, and so it was followed up by another proposal?
Yep, so the difference in that one is that there was no support when that was being discussed, and the person who made that motion
I
withdrew
see.
it before it was voted on, but you guys have voted on, you get one bite at the apple as far as I'm aware.
That's, I was thinking, you're thinking of Robert's rules and the procedural and how we take this, right? You're the legal, that, not me, but I'm thinking it's the same thing.
Okay, I believe we're ready for our next item on the agenda.
So what I would say before we get to that, we came across this a few meetings ago. Would one of the no voters be willing to give me some facts as to why that did not pass, so we have something to put in the findings of fact there?
Yes, I believe we've heard from the neighborhood. We've had somebody here tonight to tell us they wanted us to reconsider that number, and that from what we've seen, the 11 people would be too much for this house.
Another no vote here, and I would say the same thing, is that, you know, listening to the neighbors were, you know, sick, you know, it sounded, or it was of the understanding and appearances that there was up to 6 unrelated potentially in that home in the past, and it seemed to be fine, if not unnoticed, to the point where that would be just fine, and I'd be even personally possibly in exceedance of that number with the size of this house, but 11 seems a little high. And again, listening to the neighbors.
Just a follow-up question there, so I can try to put it all together, was that, and I guess either one of you, in your opinion, of fundamental alteration to the neighborhood, is that what you're basing that on? I just want to be able to tie it together.
Yes, it
Okay.
would be an alternation to the neighborhood, but not be consistent with the homes around it.
Okay, I think I'm good, guys, thanks.
Yep.
Thank you.
The final application for tonight is for 439 West 21st Street, 2314Z. Randy Brower, on behalf of Building Men for Life, is requesting a special exception for a housing accommodation to operate a recovery residence at 439 West 21st Street. He is requesting 10 unrelated persons to live together as a family, where 6 were previously approved. The Board of Appeals may approve this request if certain conditions are met.
Hi, Randy Brower, 284 Orlando Avenue, Holland, Michigan. So, yes, we were here once before for this address, which is 439. And at that hearing, I think we did debate some numbers. Just to kind of reiterate on this last vote is, we picked the number 11 because we were told that we would hold 11. But I think I did mention when we were talking that we would probably do 9. But, so, my mistake, maybe should have put in just for 9. But I know I wasn't allowed to talk while you guys were talking. You know, it wasn't open to the public, it was a closed vote. But going to this new house, or to the previous one, and that is now sitting with 2 empty rooms and 4 empty beds. It's we're just trying to get this one pushed along so that it would be able to house. Did we ask for 10? 10. Where the city, in this case, it says this house will hold 12, I believe. Very big house, very beautiful rooms. Again, the neighborhood in this area across the street is B&B Handyman and a new little pallet place. Nothing in the neighborhood across the street. We have a duplex on the one side, was just vacant. I think they may have filled it. A couple new homeowners on the other side. They've done some yard and home improvements over there, so it's been looking nice. But that house, it needs to serve its purpose. It needs to have those 2 rooms filled. You know, I can put a sign on the door that these rooms are closed due to the zoning board, and it seems I believe that neighborhood. I don't know about the 2.3 people per household. You know, I was thinking about that. That's a small group, right? But I live alone, right? Small. I don't have a family, other than Building Men for Life, right? And then I think about back in the biblical times where they used to, when you were a traveler and you traveled across the desert, you came to the town and they accepted you at that town and they took you in and they fed you and they gave you nourishment and they got you ready and they sent you down the road, you know. And that's the same thing. If everyone in this community that has all these houses that have 2.3 people in it would take in one guy, Building Men for Life could walk away, right? I mean, and that's what I think we all believe as in our faith, is that we support helping people. You know, we have churches in this community that they're like, here, we want to pay, we want to give you this money, we want to help, but we don't know how to help an addict. You can't give an addict money, he'll go buy, right? You can't, but we don't know how to help, so we like Building Men for Life. We'll donate to you because you guys have a system, you have things in place, right? And this house at 439 21st Street has stuff in place. There's 2 beds in those rooms, and they're nice rooms. You know, we passed all the rental inspections over there. The place is looking good. They have 2 washers and 2 dryers set up. So they got, you know, everything we could do to accommodate that amount of men in that house. And I know it probably doesn't seem. I also was thinking while you guys were discussing a family. So a description of a family, you know, mom and dad, kids, that's good. A lot of dysfunctional families we have. Keith and I, we have a different family. We have a family of a bunch of guys. We have a lot of guys of different race, right? We got the black and the white. We got where they live together, right? We have different genders. We have gay guys, we have straight guys. We have gals that come to our program and said that they identify as men, and we've housed 2 of them. That's our family. And when I say that to this board, you guys are, what do you deal with? But that's what we deal with in our families. And they're dysfunctional. But we need to get things functioning, right? And we need to break barriers, right? We're all dysfunctional, right? And we all are sometimes judgmental against different races, different genders. And it's breaking down the barriers. And you put a bunch of guys, like the country club, 14 guys, when they put them all together, we've seen it all there, you know? We've worked through it all, right? And we're going to continue trying. And I just hope you guys can slide us a little variance at this house. I think we're good neighbors. I know we've had some complaints. I welcome anybody that wants to tour any of our houses. The previous one we talked about, come in and take a look at it. It's a huge house. It can easily house, my number was 9. I think me and Keith talked 9. We may have asked for a little bit much on that one, but this one will easily hold 10. And the neighborhood, I don't know that we've ever caused anybody any hardship in the neighborhood. We try not to. We try to, a lot of things are based on fear, because people don't understand, right? I don't know. Insurance companies make a lot of money on fear, you know? It's all based on fear. I gotta buy the insurance, right? And it's good when you need it, right? But at the same time, I don't know, rambling on, it's a good cause. You guys know what about. We've talked about this house, you know the neighborhood. If you've been there, I welcome you guys to come at any time, buy you lunch. I know you're volunteers, right?
Randy,
Any questions?
Couple questions. Can refresh my memory. This is also a level 1 house?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I see the house manager room there on the main floor as well, right?
Yep.
Okay. And this, Tricia, how many occupants is this approved for?
I believe 12.
Okay. Okay.
Oh.
It can accommodate.
Yes.
It's approved for.
A
Well, for
family
the-
of 12 is the total occupant load. It's currently approved for 6.
Right.
I believe a year ago, the applicant was here and asked for 10. The board voted for 8 and it failed and reverted back to 6.
Okay.
In summary, that's not everything that happened.
Yep. I
Yeah,
read through
looking
it.
at the minutes, there was a motion, this is what Derek mentioned, there was a motion made for 10, no support, that motion was withdrawn, there was a motion made for 8. The chair had to make a motion on that one, I remember. And, cause the chair was trying to be compromising. And that failed, and there was 3 in favor, 2 against, but again, we needed 4. So, we were close, but, and again, it was the single bite at the apple, so.
Okay.
And on this, I'm going back to the site plan, you know, and the bed layout. The sketches show 11 beds. So, and yet the MAR certification for this is for 10. The city will allow, if they were related, 12. I'm assuming there's a egress window in the basement, which allows the basement.
3 of them.
I'm sorry?
There's 3 egress windows in that home.
Yeah, I actually, I could see them in the
Yeah.
street view. There's
Yeah.
some in the front.
There's 2.
There's at
yeah.
least 1 or 2 egress
Yeah.
windows in the front.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, they are shown. Oh, excuse me. There's 1 in the front, 1 in the back, 1 on the right side, the egress windows.
So the one room in the basement, they have made that a single-man room, which is the one up in like the driveway corner.
I'm guessing
Top
bedroom number
left-hand
4, the
corner.
smallest one.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
only 120 square foot.
Yeah.
Okay.
That one has been a single-man room. At one time, we had 2 house managers there because you know, like I said before, in a level 1, we like to have supervision there all the time. So the house managers both worked, but they worked different shifts. So we had 2 different house managers there, and then the one had the downstairs room. We've still left that single-man room and not put beds in, but I think it was, the sketches were drawn up at a time when we were going with what the city said, you could have 12, we put as many beds in, and I think we still go on that theory that what you guys say we can have, we should be able to have with the Fair Housing Act. it's not necessarily like the last house, we probably would house 9 there, not 11. But the house could hold that, and I think we should be treated like a family. I think the neighborhood support is, at this house again, is, you know, kind of like the one down here where we have evergreens is all on one side and the garden park is on the other side. We have one neighbor and a couple on the side streets. In this house, I don't think we're interrupting the neighborhood. I don't think there's too much traffic flow. I don't think, like Keith had said, there's different guys, they work different shifts. I go there and I was talking to Johnny, our house manager, the new house manager there. He's there full time now. And I said, where is everybody? He said, well, they're all off to work, you know. But we only have 5 guys there now, right? 5 guys plus the house manager is 6. So we need to put 4 more guys in the house. Would be nice if you guys would allow that.
So compared to the previous application, this one's different in that the house has been operating. You were, fit to have more in the previous application, but you're operating with 6 now. It's been going for a little while, right?
6 years, I believe. I think.
How are things going in the neighborhood? Do you have neighbors that are complaining? I mean, we'll open it up to public hearing and letters and emails and all that jazz. But to your recollection, have you had neighbors complaining, asking for, is it parking issues, noise problems, anything like that you can recollect for this
I haven't
property?
heard any complaints, and I know when the duplex next door, when people move in, when the 2 girls that moved in next on the other side, when they moved in, I give them my business card. I said, if you ever got any problems here, give me a call. I give them a flyer. I kind of give them the briefing on what the program is about. And so they're informed. Now, the duplex was just empty, so I haven't talked to those folks yet. But I don't know of anybody that has any complaints, nobody in our backyard. It's a normal neighborhood,
So when the city sent out notification, you didn't have any neighbors come to
Nope.
your organization and be like, hey, could you not?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope, I haven't had any complaints at our
They
office.
might have gone to the city. But.
And, with all 16 of our houses, there's, like I think I stated earlier, there was some complaints was we had shared a driveway. There were some issues at that house, but that has, we took care of that the way we should have, and respected our neighbor's property and put a fence up. So, yeah.
So this property currently has 6 occupants, and you said there's 2 rooms that are
Yep.
just unused, and what you're trying to do is use those 2 rooms to
Yeah.
get 2 pairs of guys.
Well, at one time, we had the house full for a while. Quite a while. And then for some reason, we got called out on it. And I don't know what the reason was. But
When you say full, how many are you saying?
that would be 10.
10.
And it operated smoothly, and the rooms were full. Yeah, I believe there was a guy that had a, I don't know exactly why it was brought up. It was either an inspection or somehow, but we got called out, and then we had another check on the house on 80 West 16th Street for the number of occupants, and we've, since then, we were in compliance with all of our houses and done what you guys have recommended. And it's been pretty tough to close down those 2 rooms, and, they fully furnished and ready to go. But it would be nice to operate it in its capacity, I think. We're not asking for the maximum that the city says the house will hold for a single family. And I did explain a little bit about our families are a little bit different. I don't think you guys can fully comprehend all of the things that we make adjustments for. And because everybody has to fit, right? People are people, right? We're all running the race together, so, anyway.
Well,
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Any other questions?
You guys,
from
I
the
know
board?
I've
All right.
put some hard time into this one, it's hard decisions, so, thank you.
Thank you, Randy. All right, at this time, we'll open the public hearing for comment or concern for this specific application. Is there anyone here speaking for or against? Keith, come on down.
Thanks for having me. I gotta try and drive the Cadillac yet tonight, so I'll keep this short, but, you know, one little difference that I think we should consider with recovery housing, there is a turnover that can happen. There's usually 1 or 2 rooms empty on a normal operating basis. On top of that, we're dealing with COVID. We have to have 1 room for isolation. If a big breakout happens, we need to isolate more. So this afternoon, I went through the inspection for the last property with MAR, and we talked, you know, we've been talking with NAR and the national standards, and they've been recommending that we ask for what the city will have, so we can have emergency beds for COVID, which was a big one. So, I mean, we were asking for 11. 9 is reasonable for that house. It really is. But you have beds that are going to be there during inspection, you know, for other purposes. So, I mean, kind of the difference is we do need to keep people safe when you reach higher numbers. My wife was terrible sick with COVID last week, you know. She isolated in her room. And I slept on the couch because we didn't have a spare room. And that would have been really nice if I had somewhere else to go. But, you know, we run 16 people at Country Club with very little issue at all. And the neighbors don't complain. And you go to any one of our other houses, and it really runs well. It's not affecting the neighborhood negatively. And I don't think the numbers really matter. I remember when we opened our house on 17th, there was some kickback from a neighbor, but then our guys are over there painting her windows, helping her move the refrigerator in and out. You know, eventually they're your neighbors. And, you know, we're talking about people. I mean, this isn't like, it's people. And so, I guess that's what I could say is, my family owns a large farm, and I know that there's a population that comes to the city and rents homes, and they'll have the same last name. And next year when they come back, they'll have a different last name, and they'll all be one family, and they'll rent the house and put 15 in it. And I know that happens in Holland a lot. So, but they do it the illegal route with the fake ID. You know what I'm saying? But they're great people. I know them. They're wonderful. The other issue is, you know, so there is a lot of this happening in Holland, and you never know it. It's not affecting your community, you know. I guess that's all I got. You know, back in the day when we were starting this, I don't think there was a zoning ordinance, like in 2008. Was there? I thought it was a Hope College thing, right? Because to keep the college kids safe. But we operated many years before we knew there was a zoning ordinance. We never heard of it. I'm an old farmer, you know, Randy made furniture. And, you know, we didn't like intend to do this kind of stuff. I mean, it happened. So, I mean, as a farm boy, we didn't know what zoning ordinances. We didn't intend to be landlords. We're just trying to help a couple guys out, right? And we operated many years before we met somebody from the city who said, you know, there's a zoning, you can't do this. And so that was our first time in front of The council, we didn't know, you know. But I'm just saying that we were able to operate 6, 7 years, and nobody knew we were there. And back then, we put a lot more in a house than now. A lot more. So, I guess what I'm saying is, you know, I think just really consider this house. It's a really nice house. The bedrooms are enormous. It has 2 living rooms. The whole basement's just unused. It has a living room, 2 giant bedrooms. You could put 4 in that bedroom. They're egress. It has a huge fenced-in backyard. It's really nice. You know, some of the houses that we rent today, we own these 2 properties that we're talking about today. Some of the houses that we rent are houses I used to buy drugs at. They're old drug homes. And back in those days, there was a heck of a lot more than 4 unrelated adults living there. And they were passed out all over the floor and different things. So I think our homes make the neighborhood safer than they used to be. You know. And I guess I'll wrap it up with that. Thanks. I'm going to go to Cadillac.
Thank you. Drive safe.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right, is there anyone else to speak in regards to this particular application? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing at this time, and the board will now deliberate.
The email was related specifically to the 495 Central, correct?
I think it was in regards to both.
It specifically lists 495 Central Avenue in the text, but then has a general disclaimer that they don't think that 11 people is appropriate anywhere. But I would say it appears to specifically relate to 495 Central.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. I thought for some reason, yeah, I'm reading it again, and I thought there was something, I thought both were mentioned, but it doesn't mention the other one. Okay.
If I could interrupt just for a moment. I did.
No, I'm sorry, our public hearing's closed. I'm sorry.
Sorry. No, thank you.
Oh, Chairman coming.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I meant 6 residents and a manager, not just 6 period.
I think for me, you know, we talked about this one, what, a year ago?
Yep.
And,
December.
you know, they were allowed to have the 6, and I don't think there's been any, at least when I go through the public record on BSA, I don't see a list of violations for the property since they've been operating or in recent years. And based on what I'm hearing from them and what I'm hearing from the city is we're not having complaints from these properties. I love what they're doing. I look at this just as I was trying to look at the first one as, hey, let's test out a number, ease the neighborhood into it, show them there's nothing wrong with this, and then we can go to a higher number. I'm kind of thinking I'm in the point where I'm far closer to 10 on this one than I was on the last one.
Yep, I feel like with my findings of fact for this item, they're even asking for less than what is the technical maximum they could ask for. I think MARR was, I think that Randy had said that MARR was certifying them for 10 on this location. So that's what they're going for here. So yeah, just based on the questions that we have to answer, I'm seeing this as a net win, and yeah, I'm in the same boat as the last application. I'm struggling to have any findings of fact that counter the number becoming 10. We didn't have any additional communications from neighbors, which suggested, hey, 6 is enough. You know, 6 is more than enough here. We didn't have any neighbors say that. It's been operating for a while now. It's been operating for years. So they've been doing well with 6. And to the chair's point, I feel like adding 4 more is not unreasonable. It's still even, again, less than the theoretical maximum that they could be putting into this location. So I know where I stand.
Was there a motion there?
No. Nope, I want to hear what everyone else has to say before.
I would say, I would be afraid of setting the double standard. That would be my first reaction. I don't know if that's true or false. Once again, I would go back to what is reasonable and what fits into the neighborhood. And I think I would be more in line with maybe adjusting that number than going all the way to 10 at this point because of the history of the house.
Keep in mind when Derek asks if we have a vote and we have enough no's that it doesn't pass, he's going to ask for, can we add any findings of fact to why it did not pass? And in the last application, the answer was primarily that neighbors, the feedback that we got from the neighbors suggested that it does not fit the criteria. That was one of 2.
That's very
we don't
true.
We don't have that now. This is house has been operating, so it's on a new location for them. So it's been operating for a while. The neighbors have had time to understand the organization, the guys that are there, however many there are, 5, 6, and maybe there's 4, depending on circumstances with availability and people coming and going. But they've had years to get used to these folks, and if they're notified that there's going to be 4 more and no one's coming forward to say, hey, that's too many, I feel like this has got more legs to it.
It's very true.
Anything else? Dan?
Nope. According to the BSNA records, it was purchased in 2019 by Building Men for Life. Although I don't know, because Randy and Keith both mentioned that they were renting some facilities prior to, so they may have been renting this one prior to.
That was a name change in 2019.
Oh,
They purchased the home under a different name in 2015, or maybe the end of 2014.
Okay, so All Investimus was them?
Yes.
Okay, that was, all right. So they've owned it for almost 10 years. And it was operated at 10 previously.
Not legally.
I
Correct.
I didn't fill in that nugget of information.
I believe when they purchased the house, the original owner had added 1 bedroom to the basement. So there are 3 bedrooms on the main floor. That was how the house was originally built. There's a full ceiling height basement in this house. The previous owner added 1 bedroom to the basement. Building Men for Life have pulled permits and added 2 additional bedrooms to the basement. So there are 3 bedrooms in the basement. So when they originally operated the house, there were only 4 bedrooms.
So Tricia, a quick question for you on BSNA, which, I know it's not 100% factual always, maybe, but it does list on there that this is a 3-bedroom home, and
The assessor's records may not have caught up yet to the building permits.
okay. And just like, I guess I meant to ask that on the last one, which listed that one as a 4-bedroom home, I believe. And, yet the site plan or the floor plan showed more bedrooms. And again, this one shows more bedrooms than 3 also, so.
And there's also a weird phenomenon between our department and the real estate world where a lot of realtors determine a bedroom has a closet. And we don't require closets in bedrooms, and we recognize
I
rooms
ignore
that don't have
realtors. I
closets.
ignore realtors' information.
So I don't know how the assessor's office determines their information either.
I'm in favor of this, just like what the chair said, and before I make a motion, I would like to know, just do a little litmus test to see whether there's any other support, or is there a good chance that we can go ahead with this? A thumb up or thumb down, anything like that would be helpful. I don't want to kill it with the proposal, but
I can't support going to 10.
you cannot.
I cannot.
Okay. Thank you.
What are you thinking, Dan?
I'm waiting for a motion, because I don't want to do all these findings of fact.
Well, where
I already did a motion today.
where you at on the litmus test per se?
I think this has already had 10 in it before, so
Okay.
I don't see a.
Then I'd like to move that we approve the request for a special exception for housing and accommodation to operate a recovery residence at 439 West 21st Street, and to allow 10 unrelated persons to live together in a family where 6 were previously approved.
Do we have support?
Support.
And findings of fact.
You want a copy of the other ones that I said? They're exactly the same.
I can't let you off that easy.
Okay,
Control C.
so is the requested accommodation for a group of individuals with a disability that's protected under the fair housing laws? Yes, it's simply a matter of fact that it is. Is the accommodation necessary to make housing available for these individuals? Is the accommodation necessary to make housing? Yes, it's a known fact that these individuals need a housing program like this for support in order to become successful citizens in our community. Will the housing be used only by persons with a disability? Yes. These individuals are all checked, their backgrounds are checked, they're tested, they're evaluated. Each one has to have a disability to enter the program. Does the accommodation impose an undue financial and administrative burden on the city? No, other than what the staff has already invested in assisting with evaluating the property, there's no additional administrative burden to the city. Does the request require a fundamental alteration in the nature of the city's zoning program? No, this program is unique. And no, that's not the answer to this one. That's the next one. Does a fundamental alteration? No, it doesn't. The zoning code for this property remains, the proposal remains within that zoning code, the definition in that zoning code. And lastly, is there an alternative accommodation which may provide an equivalent level of benefit to the applicant? No, the program is unique, and it's set up as the only one in our area that does something like this, that supports these kind of individuals.
Do you want to do the additional factors, or I can
Go
follow
right
with
ahead.
that? Oh, okay. Can I add some as well, Derek?
Yep, go for it.
Did you second this motion?
Oh,
He
no,
did.
actually, Dan did.
Dan,
So I think it has to be the person making
Yeah,
the
it has to be
motion
the
or the
person in
person
support.
seconding that
okay, well,
does the conditions.
I can continue to keep going. Is the recovery residence licensed by the state as a substance abuse disorder facility? Yes, it is. Is the recovery residence a certified member of an entity that conducts its own inspections and has its own standards for the benefit of the occupants? Yes, it does have a whole inspection program that goes on continuously.
Mention Michigan Association of, I wrote it down, Recovery Residences, which is a member of National Alliance of Recovery Residences.
That's the one I was referring to.
Yes.
Will the property be managed by a person living on site? Yes, there's a manager. This is a level 1 facility. There's a manager on site. How will the requested accommodation benefit the people in the program? Well, it's evident. The whole program is set up and designed to benefit the people in the program, to help them become fully functional within our community.
Good with me.
We do have all these mapped out. I noticed this last one. Property's not within
The
500
500
feet.
feet.
That's just some,
Well, since,
Then it was
I
to
believe that
consider.
since we don't necessarily know that off the top of our heads, we don't have to add that as an additional factor.
Yeah, those last 5 aren't required. Those are
Not
just
required.
kinda, yeah, so.
Fair enough.
Those aren't pass-fail questions, those are
Fair enough.
additional, that bulk to the, reasoning behind the yes/no questions. Yeah.
That
Okay,
left-
I
that
think-
left unsaid.
I think we're looking for a call for a vote, please.
The motion is to approve Sorick,
Yes.
Barr,
No.
Davis,
Yes,
Van Antwerp,
Yes.
and Fuzak.
Yes.
That motion to approve has passed.
Okay, I think the next thing on the agenda is the approval of the previous meeting's minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
I say we approve those minutes.
Support?
We have motion and support. All those in favor say yes.
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 Yes. And if there's no further orders of business, we're just looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
And do we need support? Support?
Support.
Support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.